Hello YouTube. Hello YouTube. Today we're gonna do the Paul speed lap, which to be honest I was kind of surprised about. I didn't think anyone would request Paul, especially this early before anyone would request, I don't know, Kunimitsu maybe? Did I lap Kunimitsu? I don't even remember. Or you know, Julia, or those kind of characters, Chloe or Lily. Yeah, we're seeing Paul before that. A little bit surprised there. Early days doing 6 hours straight electrics, that's how we learn electrics, bro. Mishima players, normal practice session. But yeah, today we're gonna be doing Paul. Paul is a character you don't see that often. But in my opinion, he's quite a decent character with a lot of good tools. But of course he has his flaws, but he can be used very, very well. And if you utilize him well, he can be very rewarding. Especially if you know, get all his hits in, get his counter hits in. He has a lot of damage. He has a decent punishment. Back 1-2 is one of the best punishers in the game. 12 frame punishers in the game. It's very easy to confirm as well. Very easy to use as a tracking move, which is very good to do. And Paul in general is, I don't know, I think he's good. So let's discuss game plan in general and how we have to think about the matchup, especially with Kaz. First, let's say in general and then go with the particular character matchup, which is Kazuya in this case. So in general, Paul has decent poking, but most of his moves, when you do play against Paul, can be stepped to the right, but be careful about pure stepping, because if you step block, it will track a little bit more, and if you mess up the block, it may hit you. So you have to do a very big step for this to work, something like this, right? A step block. So the block comes out a little bit later. That's why a sidewalk is always a more reliable option. So sidewalk right. While if you go left, it will still work. But I still prefer right because of some other moves. Thing is, down forward 1 is kind of linear, both sides. But when it comes to some other moves, side step right works pretty well. Something like down 1, for example, is a very, very crucial move. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons I'm sidewalking to the right or even sidestepping to the right. Because this move has an amazing tracking to the left. And this can be used as a poke. It's a 14 frame move, it's a mid. It's not that much plus. But it can be used as a very good poke. If you go to the right, it will just whiff. Well, if you go to the left, it won't. That's why I usually prefer going to the right, even though down forward 1 tracks a little bit there, then to the left. I don't care about down forward 1. As long as I step down 1, and there's a chance of me stepping down forward 1, it's better to go to the right. So that's why I would suggest as well. And I think it's the same with Death Fist. If they just throw out the Death Fist, something like this, there's more of a chance of it tracking to the left. Like that. Let me try to get hit, wait. There we go. Then to the right. Like, I can do sidestep right, hold forward, and I won't get hit. If I do the same on left, I'm gonna get hit. Like that. So if they do throw out the Death Fist, even that will whiff. Of course, there's a lot of options the Paul player can do, because as I said, one of the best tracking options is a back 1, which you can't sidestep block. It's a 12 frame move, it's a high, of course you can duck it, but you cannot sidestep block it, which is one of the bigger things. It comes out so fast, if you even try to sidestep, unless you sidestep block immediately after, like immediately after, then it just won't work. Oh guys, excuse me, someone's calling me. I have to take the call. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Had to take the call. But yeah, let's get back to it. So I was talking about the advantage of sidestep right, and how the Paul player, at least a very good Paul player, can use back one to stop you from stepping, or some other Paul players, if the Paul player is greedy, can also use QCB 4, which is a slower option, which can be sidestep blocked easier. So, for example, if they jab a lot, you can do a sidestep right, block it a little bit easier. Not a little bit, actually a lot easier for QCB4, because it's a QCB input. While it says 15, the QCB actually takes up frames as well. It's way easier to block after a sidestep than a back one, which is basically impossible. Even if you try a sidestep right duck, like in this situation, it's very hard, because you have to do it immediately. You're basically sacrificing your sidestep for a duck anyway. Like, this sidestep is non-existent. You're not making anything whiff by sidestepping like that, so basic game plan against Paul. If you're long range, the game plan is a little bit different. But if you're close range, sidestepping right a lot for all these moves can be really good. The mids usually can be sidestepped to the right. Even if they try something like a cancel while standing 3, for example, right? But now let's talk about the lows. The best low Paul has is this one, QCF 3. He also has back 4, which is a little bit weird to use. This is like stature kick in a way, with less range, less plus frames, it's only plus 3 instead of plus 4. But it's pretty similar. But this is the best low he has. QCF 3. So this move has a lot of range because it's a QCF move. It's very hard to step, as you guys can see, either direction. Although it is steppable to the right, but you have to like double step or something like that. Yeah, something like this, for that to even work. So it tracks really well, it's high crushing, and it's a very good counter hit property. Very, very good. That's guaranteed. If the Paul player is good enough, they can also get that. I didn't get it because I'm not good enough. I don't play Paul, but yeah. There we go. So that's guaranteed as well. So, yeah. In general, close range sidestep right works really well. Know your options. This is a very good low. They go up for, not go up for, but they use. And this is also another one, which is QCB3. With less range, but a little bit more mind game options. Because this is a full string, and it has 2 options, right? One is the high, which can be really delayed, so let me see. How much can I delay it? I don't think that was the full delay. I'm pretty sure I can delay it more. There we go, that was a pretty good delay. So it can be very, very delayed. Or, there's also a mid option, which also can be very delayed, like that. So there's basically a triple mind game here, or if you count this, just this as well, but usually Paul players don't stop at just QCB3. Mind games as follows when it comes to this low. So this low doesn't have much mind games. If you duck it a lot, try to backdash duck it, because it will catch the timing of it most of the time, but just be careful of other mids that are kind of slow, it might catch you. But let's talk about QCB3. So the triple mind game I'm talking about is the one when they stop here and just don't continue at all, which is -10, right? You can punish this 1-1-2, but you're taking the risk of getting hit by the follow-ups, so it becomes a mind game of punishing this or not. Then there's this, the mid. So let's imagine we're punishing this, get countered launched, right? Countered launch. You don't want that. So it's a mind game situation. There's no escaping this situation. But if you do block it, it's -13, and Kazuya especially does get a full launcher here. So you get a very, very good combo. Twin pistons. So that's the second mind game, which is a two-way mind game. The third one is the high. If you don't do anything, just hold back, and don't duck, you're gonna block the high, which is -10, but your jab won't reach. I think Gigas can reach this, but Kazuya can't. So the three-way mind game consists of basically this. You either duck the high, don't do anything and block the mid, because you don't want to duck the mid. Or you punish the second hit, because they do the second hit a lot. There are some option selects that you can also do, which is something like fuzzying the high. Because if they do the high instantly, it comes out way faster than the mid. If you do fuzzy it, you can also block the mid and duck the high. But as I said, the problem is this being very delayable. Like that. That's a huge delay. And same with the 3. Fuzzy becomes less of an option the more delayable a string is. Although I still try to do it sometimes. So yeah, that's a basic mind game of QCB3. Back 4, I won't talk about back 4 that much because not a lot of Paul players use it. But the mind game here is very basic, +3 mind game, which Paul player can either use as a counter hit opportunity with a magic 4, if you do press it, the 12-frame magic 4. Or if you try to step after it, they can use back 1, which is also a frame trap and also an anti-sidestep move. Or they can use down 1 and down 4 to 1 to check you if you're ducking or doing any kind of high crush. Or of course, if they want a little bit higher reward, they can use some other mids. They can even use a down 4-2 in that situation if you try to jab. I think this into down 4-2. I think this is setup. Never mind, it's not. There are a lot of down 4-2 setups for Paul. I thought this was one of them, but it's not. But yeah. A basic mind game with a lot of basic tools that Paul has, which I already listed. So let's move away a little bit. Not close range, let's move a little bit further. What do Paul players like to do in this range, right? The most common move you'll see is 4-4-2. This one right here. I don't think you'll ever see a Paul player not use this. In, I don't know, until Tekken God or True Tekken God ranks. When they just have enough distance, most likely they throw this out to catch you off guard. And especially if you're at the wall, they'll try to do it. So be very, very ready for this. I'm also gonna say what to do against this, especially to beat all the options. Normally there's a mind game, but there's a fuzzy option select that you can do, which is pretty good. Like very, very good. But let's talk about the other options. The other options is of course the long range option he has, like this low, which I also said can be very long ranged, depending on how much the Paul player holds it forward after QCF. So this can be very long range. And in general it has pretty good range. So this is one of the options he can do. Of course you can just throw out the Death Fist if you feel like it. And instead of a Death Fist, they can just use other mids. I just remembered he has QCB2, which is like a Death Fist substitute if you want to play safe. So QCB2, very, very good mid check that the Paul player can use, but it has the same weakness that I talked about, that it can be sidestepped to the right very, very easily. And this tracks to the left, which is one of the reasons I still don't want to step Paul to the left. Down back 2. Yeah, down back 2 is also one of the mids. Although it's not used as much in mid range or even close range, it won't be used that much. Most of the time it's being used at the wall when they think you're gonna stay down. Most of the time. Oh, but one very important fact about down back 2, since we are in that move, is that it's punishable. It's -11. Very, very important. But as a Kazuya player, do not back 1-2 it. You guys see this? This is not punish. This is one of my biggest issues with back 1-2 being 11 frames. It's a fake 11 framer. It becomes 12 90% of the time. See this? 12 frames. It becomes 12. Now it was 11. But it's not worth gambling like this. It's really not. If you do block this and try to back 1-2, you're literally gambling and praying that it's gonna be 11 instead of 12. You'll never know. So it's not worth punishing that unless you're at the wall. If you're at the wall, 1-1-2 will work, and back 1-2 will work. It is punishable. Pushback stop you from doing 1-1-2? Yes. Exactly. So 1-1-2 won't work. Unless you have a good, very long range 10 frame punish, you won't be able to punish this normally. And in general, I think since it hits so far, the pushback is so big, even good 10 frame punishers will most likely whiff. So most of the time, if you want to punish this, you punish this at the wall. As high crush, yes, this has a bit of high crushing if I remember correctly. There we go. That was a high crush frame. Crushed my jab. It can be used for setups, but it's not that scary unless you get countered. If you do get countered, it is scary because it's a launcher. So basically a high crush setup option that they might use, but I don't see it used that much outside of those situations. The setup situations, I mean. Shit, that was so much damage from Death Fist, right? So these are the most common moves. I almost forgot QCB2. And for mid-range, I think this QCB2 has a mix-up. This low. What else? They can also use QCB3 as low, but most of the time they won't because it doesn't have that much of a range if you're backdashing into a most likely whiff. But yeah, it's a string, so be careful about the whiff. If a power player whiffs that, you have to be careful of punishing it because the second it, last hit can counter hit you. What else? Oh, shoulder setups. I'm gonna talk about setups a little bit later. The down forward 2 setups and the shoulder setups, which are very annoying. And this setups as well. How do you do that? Auto sidestep this one. There are setups for this as well. Yeah. Oh, up back 2. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, Hakat, thank you, man. Thank you. I almost completely forgot about this. So this move is usually used in the closer range. If the pole has some distance, most of the time they won't use this unless they think you're gonna get close and press a button. Because it has such a bad whiff recovery. This can be seen as an unbeatable move. Because it's a mid countered launcher that's also tracking and it's also safe. Basically an unstoppable move that you can't really do anything about unless you backdash it. Its range is one of its weaknesses, and of course its whip recovery isn't that good. So yeah, back 2, I almost forgot about that. Very good. Most of the time can be used in close range, but I think this also has some kind of high crushing. Yep, there we go. So a lot of jabs can whiff against Paul. Most of his moves anyway. Which is kind of dumb, but it's just how it is. So up back 2 also has a bit of high crushing. But I think the high crushing comes in the form of jab crushing most of the time. And something like a Magic 4 or moves like that will most likely counter it. I don't think something like that will whiff. Never mind, it just whiffed. But yeah, less of a chance of that happening. I was testing it out. I proved myself wrong. Oh, and this. I keep remembering the good mids Paul has. But yeah, Paul is a very good character with a lot of moves. Not a lot of moves, but a lot of good moves that can be used. So forward 1+2 is also one of the moves that should be used in close range. And it's usually used as a mix-up option for some of the lows like this one. But usually this move is used at the wall. Because of its countered property being a knockdown, which is a wall splat. And it being plus on block. And as a mix-up to Demo Man, for example. For them being that close. And having an easy input. Just be 1+2. Yeah, this is also a setup option or a panic option that they have. Perhaps a bit later. Fort 4. This is one of the options they might use in mid-range. So when I was talking about mid-range options, forward 4 is one of them. I think I should stop there. I've been experimenting with buttons. I'm like, maybe I did forget something. Like forward, forward, forward being one of them, because Paul players do like to use it. And the thing about forward, forward, forward is you have to be careful on block, because it's not that much minus. Whenever you block this, it can become anything from, let me do the calculations, -5, so for Paul -5, to, how much is that? 11 to +6, I think, something like that. So it can become plus for Paul depending on how it hits, how it gets blocked, I mean. So be careful about pressing there. Like this into while standing 3 is very, very common. Although in most situations you will be able to step it, but if they're plus, like in that situation, like +2, right? You won't be able to step it. In this one, it's a little bit more steppable because you're... Damn, I couldn't step it. I guess it's just not steppable. Kazuya step sucks. Confirmed. I was able to step it to some other character. That's why I was saying it's steppable. Kazuya step sucks though. But yeah, Kazuya can step it. Since we're talking about Kazuya here, let's not talk about steps. While standing 3 in that situation does track really, really well. You gotta be careful about that. But as I said, it's not always plus for Paul, so you can't check this. Something like a Magic 4 can work. Unless it's those kind of situations where Paul has a lot of plus frames. I can't recreate it now, but it can happen. Like +3 for Paul, it can definitely happen. Or +2. So jab check can work, Magic 4 can work. Especially if they really like doing while standing 3, which a lot of Paul players do like to do. Of course, if you step it, you can punish it, but be careful of electriking it. Because a Paul player can stay ducking after it. So electrics will whiff. Basically, don't do this. Right? Don't do that. Damn, that hit. Because it can just whiff. The tracking on that move. That's why I go to the right, guys, and not to the left. Saw that track to the left? Yeah, down forward 1-2 is your punish as a Kazuya player. So that's one of the mid options. Let's talk about forward 4-2. So this move, I think it's getting used by literally every Paul player alive. Well, almost. Not everyone. And it has a very, very easy way to deal with it, in my opinion. If you're ready for it, of course. If you're sharp enough. Which you should be if you're playing against Paul, because 100% you're gonna go up against this. So normally, Paul player has 3 options. Yeah, it's 3. So one is this high, the second one is this mid, and the third one is a cancel. A very, very easy way to deal with the mid and the high, not so much the cancel, but it's already good enough, is to do a mini fuzzy duck, which is a very, very good thing. So what do I mean by that? So if you look at the frames, that high comes out in 15 frames. That with the mid. That comes out at 26. So if you do literally this, I'm doing a fuzzy duck now after every forward 4-2. Do the damn high. So I can duck it and demonstrate it. Bro! He's not doing it. There we go. So if you do a mini fuzzy duck, which is not that hard to do because of the massive frame difference between the 2 moves, you'll always be able to duck the high while always blocking the mid. This is no mix-up. A lot of Paul players use this as a mix-up. It is not a mix-up. Worst case scenario, you duck and get up in time for the high to block it. Worst case scenario. So this is the best way to deal with this. Very, very easy to do. You have, I think, 11 frames to do this, so it's not hard to do at all. It's not a fuzzy in like Dragunov's, Horang's Hell Sweep and back 3. It's not the same when you have like 3 frames there. This is like way, way easier, way more doable. Very important to do as well. Only thing it doesn't beat, of course, it's the cancel, because, you know, you're gonna be fuzzing, you won't be doing anything. But you're just gonna play the mind game after the cancel and just continue backdashing, right? Or even do a while standing 4 if you see the cancel. Or just instant jab. Which I would be a little bit careful of, because this is one of the setup starters. Not setup starter, but a setup initiator? I don't know what to call it. Cancelable into Oking? Yeah. This right here, which I just mentioned. But it's not that big a deal, because if you nullify the high and the mid, which 95% of the Paul players use, and they start doing only that, it's already good enough. Like 100% it's already good enough. Not to mention if they do something like this into a shoulder as a setup, right? Which is also a lot of habit for a lot of Paul players. This into shoulder. That's why I wouldn't suggest duck into jabbing. Right? Something like this. This will happen 100% of the time. That's why I do suggest just keep backdashing. If you do a fuzzy, just keep backdashing. If you backdash, something very important is gonna happen. One, you're gonna create more of a chance of down forward not being a clean hit in that situation. Unless you're at the wall, of course, then you're more or less gonna get schmixed. But if you're not at the wall, down forward clean hit will have less of a chance of being a thing. And this will be blocked, so it won't really be a mix-up or anything like that. So nothing too scary is gonna happen. If you do this into a backdash. Of course, react to the cancel. If they don't do anything, don't try to punish something. So yeah, that's the main way to deal with this move, which is very easily fuzzyable, and you should be fuzzying it. Okay. What else? What other mid-range moves did I talk about? I did talk about this, but I already mentioned that it's very weird to step it, because it's a QCF move with a long range and very good tracking. But one thing about this move, which is very important to remember, especially as a Kazuya player, is that you have to force the Paul player to use this a lot. So as a Kazuya player, electric checks are very good in this matchup. QCF 3+4. Yeah, this move, almost forgot. So mid-range, this is also a very good mid check. So many mids, man, I just keep forgetting them. I forgot this as well. And almost forgot that. Yeah, this can be used as a mix-up to this. But if you do sidestep to the right, as I say, there's a chance that this will whiff. But it has a bit of track to the right, more to the left, but you can still step it. Especially at a little bit longer range, it will be harder to step, like this, right? Way harder. Left is way easier. But it can work well. But if they do like to do this, it is worth considering going to the left instead of to the right. In the long range situations. Close range, it's still better to go to the right, because they usually won't do this instantly as a mix-up if they're too close range. They will prefer doing something like this. Usually. While this tracks to the left better, this tracks to the right better, which is really good. Can't believe I almost forgot that. This is very important. Because these two moves have separate direction tracking. Which is very important in this kind of situation. Paul combo? Okay. What was I talking about? I want to talk about the setups a little bit later. I was talking about mid-range stuff. Oh, I was talking about this. When you have to electric him a lot. The thing about Paul is Paul's high crushing moves, like pure high crushing moves outside of the jab crushing he has, that's pseudo high crush, is most of the time pretty unsafe. So something like this, for example, pretty unsafe and not safe to throw out. That's what unsafe means. So they have to commit to the string, which is a mind game, of course, a three-way mind game, but it can still work against Paul. And most of the time it will work against Paul a lot. By a lot, I mean he will get punished severely. Especially against Kaz, when if they do the mid, it's gonna be a twin pistons. If they do the high and you guess correctly, it's gonna be a launch. If they do stop here, that's like the safest option they can do, but even that is -10. Now let's talk about this, right? A bit better option, but even this is very scary against Kaz because it's -14. Kazuya player, of course, you get a TP here. Messed up the combo. So that's why using electric checks is so important, because you're kind of forcing the Paul player to use low crushes, not low crush, high crushes. The more this you use, the Paul player will start thinking about, he's throwing out so many electrics, I gotta throw out something that won't let me get hit by it. So they'll use something like UCF3, which is very punishable by Kazuya. Just -14. So throw out electrics, good electric checks can be very important in this matchup. Of course they can do some other stuff, like just duck the electrics if they have a hard read, instead of doing this all the time. But it's pretty logical to assume that they'll start doing this. And Paul players do indeed start doing that if they see a lot of electrics. Not all of them, but some of them will. Basically, this knowledge will be useful. Okay. What else? Maybe let's talk about the mind game on this. Of course, on block, you'll be able to launch it as a Kazuya player, TP. Let's talk about on hit. So it's 0, so it's not that bad for you, but you're both left standing, and if you do jabs, both of you do jabs, you're gonna trade. The thing is, most Paul players either opt for sidestepping in that situation. So if you do press something, most of the time they will avoid it. Or some more party-loving Paul players might immediately do this or this. I've seen both. Because if you do a jab here, that beats a jab. That's basically the idea behind that. This can be seen as a setup against jabs. If you do a sidestep, this will also just do that. That's why you go right, boys. Even the shoulder pucks you up to the left. You go right, the shoulder won't hit you anymore. So very important to go right instead of left, because a lot of things just track to the left for no reason whatsoever. Like this. Although, if you do go to the right, I think this will track you. Let's see, left first. This will track you regardless. Doesn't matter where you step. Tracking move. But yeah, sidestep right block. I'll just block it if you don't sidewalk it. -14 as well. So pretty good. Of course, if you respect it too much, the Paul player may see it and just continue pressuring with a lot more of this. Or some other stuff like generic down 3, just back 4, or some other lows. Or try to dash in as fast as possible, so he will enforce a mix-up. So let's talk about that next, since I just mentioned it. Paul's mix-ups and basically his comeback potential. So at close range, super close range, he does have the demo map, which does a lot of damage. It's 43 damage. I think it's 42 without the wall. Maybe even less, like 41 or 40. Never mind, that's a lot of damage. So he has that as a comeback potential. And usually works at the wall when they are very close. Like this. And you're kind of forced to duck and guess. The mix-up here, which is a high-risk mix-up, is either this or this. But of course they can use any mid that they want to, because he has pretty good mids. Like this one, this will also stop you from stepping. That's why I wouldn't recommend stepping Paul to avoid this mix-up. This will still wall splat you while it's tracking safe counter launcher. And he also has this, which is also very good. Safe, good pushback. Mid, wall splat, decent damage. Because, you know, Paul deals pretty decent damage. And they'll mix you up with this if they're close enough. A little bit less risky option for Paul players, also at the wall, is a sidestep mix-up. Yes, Neil, exactly. So if they do sidestep 3, instead of a demo man. Less risky option, but also very strong because sidestep 3's property. All this being guaranteed on counter hit. So this is very, very strong, especially at the wall. Have to look out for it. It's a sidestep mix-up. Usually you'll see either this or this. And if you do get strong, you're gonna get wall splatted and do a lot of damage. Or, as I said, they can use any other mid like this one, or even a Death Fist as a mix-up. And if you do get strong, and especially if they do a Death Fist, you just took 8-4 damage for free. So be very, very careful when it comes to that. Sometimes you have to guess. Sometimes you just gotta guess. What can I say? And at the wall, Paul is really, really scary. The way you die. Yeah, sometimes it's better to eat the lows. But now let's talk about the lows. Of course, after the demo man, you kinda have to go back into the same situation. I'll just spring kick or something like that, which is very risky. But it's a knockdown. You have to respect it most of the time. But of course, the Paul player is very aggressive, just spring kick. Don't give a shit, just spring kick. But let's talk about this situation. So this situation is very, very interesting after you get hit by this. The mind game here is pretty simple for Paul, because he has such a great tool in back one. So if you try to step after this, which you do want to get out of the wall, so you do want to step, they have a back one, which they can confirm kinda easily. That was a confirm. And of course it's gonna be a wall splat. And as I already talked about back one, you cannot sidestep block this because it's that fast. So this will control all kinds of steps, while a good Paul player will even confirm it. Let me just check if it's actually confirmable. That was not confirmed. There you go. It is indeed confirmable. It does not lie. So yeah, that's very, very important. And of course, if you don't step and just stay there, or maybe, I don't know, press something, all the other moves become way more viable. And of course, if you do press something, this also works as a frame trap. Because +4, 12 frames fast, frame trap. And they can also just counter it, confirm it, which is a lot easier into more damage. So be very, very careful back one after this. Very careful. It's an amazing choice for a Paul player. Amazing, amazing choice. If they don't use it and they immediately go for another mix-up like this, or another sidestep mix-up, you have more of a chance of sidestepping and getting out of the wall, but you also take the risk of getting hit by a back one. The things I didn't mention is something like down 4-1, down 1, and all the other checks that Paul player can also do, outside of just mixing you up with all the mids he has. I think that's more or less his wall game. Of course, you can just control you with jabs and stuff like that to go into the same situation I talked about, but it still comes down to the mix-ups. Do something at round start. Oh, when I start playing Dract, I'll do it. I'll do it. So yeah, that's Paul's wall game. Back 1+2. Oh, back 1+2. Yeah. Also very, very important. This is also another setup option Paul players have. No, not that. So now let's talk about the setups. It's came across back 1+2 as well. His setups are usually jab setups, like jab crushing setups. So things that will crush jabs and get you launched for it. And usually those setups involve either down 4-2 or shoulder. Usually. They're like the most common ones. So something like this into shoulder, very, very common. You try to jab here, too bad, right? Don't work, even if you're very close. Pure high crushing, that's a setup. Be careful about that if you do duck it. You already know how to, fuzzy it, but we're all human, you can fuck it up, sometimes you block it, so be careful. Especially if you do sidestep to the left immediately, which I already showed, this kind of has track it to the left for whatever reason. And I think the same thing applies for down forward too. You do try to jab here. I think it will also whiff, yeah. I don't know if it whiffs because of a distance or just crushing. But be careful of jamming here, this is also a setup. Into down forward too. There's some other setups as well. But I don't think I remember some other ones. Maybe down forward 2 and down forward 2. No. Oh, I just remembered. The QCF1 to down forward 2. This is a setup. There we go. This is a very important setup. A lot of Paul players love to do this. So yeah. Oh, this is crushed. Look at that. Magic 4 is crushed. I don't think electric will get crushed, right? Let me try. Nope, electric does not get crushed. Best hitbox high in the game. I think, anyway. So that setup, be very, very ready for that. Where jabs are crushed, throws are too, right? The thing is, it depends. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It depends on the crushing. Like, I think in this case it won't, yeah. Normal throws work. Yeah, that one didn't work. The 2 throw worked, but not the 1 throw. Weird. Yeah, it depends on a lot of factors. Yeah, you be careful about that setup, but in general, after QCF1, QCF1 is actually one of the moves Paul players do like to use in mid-range to catch you doing something. Maybe get a counter hit or a normal hit like this. Into a combo. So be careful about that. And QCF1 also being one of the things that you can't sidestep to the right. And has a bit of tracking to the left, as you guys can see. If I do the same movement on the right, it has more of a chance of whiffing, but if I do the same movement on the left, it has more of a chance of getting blocked. The sidestep right, it's good against this move as well. But it's harder to step because of distance sometimes, because in the mid-range, this will have a bit more tracking. But since I told you the setup, you already know what to do on block. Of course, if you get hit, get launched. And if you do sidestep it, try to punish it, just be ready for it, basically. But this is one of the most common setups I've seen, this to down forward 2. Very, very common. Or that into shoulder, the high version, not the mid. This into shoulder, very common. And in general, I think Paul players can use shoulder literally anytime they want. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention this, right? So this move can be used as a panic move as well, but it's usually used at the wall. Can be used outside of it, but it's usually used at the wall. So this is 0, and it has a very unique mind game in my opinion. Which I don't know if Paul players do it on purpose or not. The mind game is very, very simple. It's either a shoulder, which is very, very common, which is also steppable, unless the wall is at that side, of course. Damn, I think I was too close. There we go, let me try to make it unsteppable, there we go. If you're way too close, and wall basically is not your friend, doesn't become a steppable, like in that situation, but in general it can be steppable. But if you do try to press there, any kind of high will whiff. So something like this into this, usually it happens at the wall, you try to jab, won't work. Right? Try to magic 4, it will trade, it's the same kind of frames. If you have an 11 frame magic 4, I think that might even whiff. Mine's a 12 framer, so I can't really check. Let me check back 1. Back 1 works. Kazuya back 1 works. I don't know how good back 1 is as a check, but hey, it works there. So maybe an 11 frame magic 4 won't whiff. It may be a decent option, if you do have one. For Kazuya, you either take it or back 1 check. And they can also do a demo man there if you respect it too much. Which sometimes you are really forced to respect it. Because the shoulder, you can't really press anything after that. Either it's too slow because this comes out in 12 frames and also crushes highs. Because the only options you have is either a jab or 11 frame magic 4, which Kazuya doesn't have. Or you sidestep, which sometimes the walls restrict you from stepping. Of course, damn, did I get something guaranteed there? That was sick. But sidestepping is a decent option. But if they think you're respecting it too much, they literally can just go for Demo Man instantly as a mix-up. Because it can work. It's a thing that really can work. You have to be very ready for it and be very aware of the wall. If you do sidestep to the right, the Demo Man can still hit you sometimes as a clean hit. So be very careful. But the 11 frame move, 11 frame magic 4, that's your friend. Okay. Well, let's talk about... I want to talk about the rage drive situation in the end, just like I always do. Rage is like end content for speed labs. Maybe I should talk about Paul's rage art as well, the special cancel that he has, but there's not much to talk about. I'll just mention it a bit. I talked about that. Magic 4 is also one of the moves you have to step to the right. And of course the mind games with Magic 4 are pretty simple. They have plus frames, they see you mashing, they use Magic 4. They see you stepping, they use back 1. They see you ducking or they want to continue pressure, they might use down forward 1s or down 1s. Or, you know, any of the lows that I just mentioned. These lows, not back 3. Good Paul players might even use this, I almost forgot this. 3. I don't see a lot of Paul players using this just like this. But 3 is a very, very good mid check that Paul has. That good Paul players can be able to... what's the word? Confirm it. So on hit, they'll continue the 2. But on block, they won't. Although it's hard to confirm, it's not easy. Good Paul players can do it sometimes. So be careful about the 3 check as well. The 3 check is very important because it actually tracks to the right, which is the side we're going to be stepping a lot. And this is the time, this is literally the only time when I see a Paul player using a lot of 3 checks, I'm going to consider going to the left a lot. But 3 in general has very good tracking, as you guys can see. I'm doing sidestep left blocks, sidestep right blocks, it just doesn't work after a jab. It tracks really well. I got sidewalk to the left to make it consistent. So a 3 check is very, very important for Paul players, but not a lot of Paul players do it. Just keep that in mind. Hop kick extensions. Yeah, these extensions are damage to... like, I don't think they're worth mentioning. Because you can just punish the hop kick. Right? Most of the time, the hop kick extensions don't even come out. So your option select here is mid, which can be up to 13 frames, I think. Wait. Damn, that's a lot. I think this is 13, yep. The reason I say 13, I have in my brain engraved to 13 is because of this. I sometimes can't tell the difference between these two. The thing is, I almost always use 12 frame punish normally for like scissor kicks. Or for hop kick, I just use a normal punish as well, like back 1-2. The main reason for it is Paul players do not want to go for the extension because they want a combo. Most of the time they won't go for the extension. Abna, hello. Does it work for this? Yeah, this is pretty slow. Oh damn, it trades. I thought 11, 13 traded. That's actually interesting. That's very interesting. Back 1-2 for the win. Gotta love my back 1-2. That's why it always works. But yeah, as a cosplayer, you back 1-2. Back 1-2 is very, very good. I really like doing back 1-2. Oh, even though it won't work against this, it's not that big a deal. This won't do anything to you. It really, really won't do anything to you. Not to mention, if the Paul player just throws it out and it hits, they won't get anything. Down jab if you need an OS. Yeah, if you do need an OS, you do down jab, but it doesn't give you shit. They can just throw this out for free, and not to mention it whiffs if you just do that. I think down 2 will work, yeah. The 2 down jab, not normal big jab. But yeah, just punish it. Some Paul players might mix it up, but as a cause, the biggest threat for you is this high that may counter at launch you. So just back 1-2, it won't hit you. It will also punish this. And this might hit you, but it's really not that big a deal. It doesn't have a countered property. It's -6. It's basically shit. It's nothing. And it's launch punishable. Okay. I think rage drive situation is the thing I have to talk about now. So yeah, down forward 2 is one of the moves that all players can use in mid-range. Can't believe I forgot that. I only use down forward 2 as a setup option. The way you deal with this is like how you deal with most down forward 2s. And this, of course, is basically like a little bit better than average down forward 2 if you don't count the crushing it has. The range is a little bit better than normal. Because, as you guys can see, Paul just moves forward and he does a down forward 2. This can be a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It's a good thing because they can hit more easier, but it's a bad thing because it can also be whiff punished more easier because they're closer because of it. So both sides can work here. It's a little bit iffy. So if you do see this coming, try to punish it. Especially with an electric, if you can't do it, punishing this with an electric is very, very good. And most down forward 2s in general. Even though it recovers pretty quickly, I made a vid that almost all down forward 2s recover only 2 frames slower than electrics do. And this basically serves the same purpose as a keep out electric, more or less. Like this kind of stuff, right? So you have to be ready for it. You have more frames than electric, of course. Like 2 more, if I remember correctly. Depends on the down forward 2 as well. Most down forward 2s are like that, but some of them are a little bit different, like Asuka's. Asuka's recovers quicker than that, if I remember correctly. And Alisa's recovers slower than that. Something like that. And yeah, when it comes to down forward 2s, if you're ready for them, you should be punishing them. If you're not, it's fine, just be careful about setups on whiff, because down forward 2 on whiff is a setup starter, as I like to call them. I don't know, down forward 2 is just one of those moves that people like to press after whiff. Which is actually just like electrics. Exactly like electrics. Mishima players like pressing after electrics or ducking after electrics. And every other character that has generic down forward 2 like to press after generic down forward 2 as a keep out tool. They just like to do it. It's just what it is. So be careful about that. And it works because of their fast whiff recovery, as I already talked about. Now let's talk about the race situation. Not player. So Paul's rage situation is very, very scary. So one is his comeback potential, of course, gets boosted up, even though it's already decent. Gets boosted up like tenfold. One reason it gets boosted up is his rage art cancel. So something like a down forward 2, if you just randomly get launched or get punished for whatever reason, will have a cancel into a lot of damage. Like, this is not a good combo right here. I think Paul can get way more damage than this, but even this is decent, right? 83 damage. Into a wall, if he gets the wall, into this, into a lot of damage. That's very good damage from a down forward 2. So you have to be careful about that. That's one thing. You get launched, you're gonna get hit by a lot of damage into a mix-up most likely. But the second thing is his rage drive, which is his enhanced Death Fist. Blue Death Fist. So what this does, which is very very important, is it boosts Death Fist's frames up by 1, so this makes it faster. By 1 frame, it's not that big, but it's big enough. 1 frame faster is pretty big. So it's fast, comes out quite instantly, it's 12 frames fast, very very fast. And if you do get hit, you get hit by a lot of damage, even without the rewall splat. I think a Paul player can do something like this to rewall splat. Yeah, that's 100 damage. That's a lot of damage. And Paul players usually use this Blue Death Fist at the wall to mix you up, just like they would normally with like QCB2 or normal Death Fist and, you know, Hell Sweep or Sidestep 3. Like Sidestep 3 and Death Fist, like this Blue Death Fist, can be a mix-up, which is a very scary mix-up, very very scary, because you don't want to duck, right? And if the Paul players understands that you don't want to duck, they'll keep hitting you with this, like that. It's not only you don't want to duck, you also don't want to press, because if they do this into Rage Drive instantly, it can also work as a semi-frame trap, if they do it correctly anyway. And if I remember correctly, this also can crush some jabs because of the QCF input. So if you do a jab, even though this won't be a frame trap, if they mess it up, you can still crush it. So be very careful about the rage situation. Outside of the wall, of course, they can use it just as well. It's more or less a tool to keep you away and to just kill you because it does so much damage. It's like 60 damage right on click hit. So they will just get close to you, and if they are in range, they'll just throw it out. If they think you're gonna do something, they'll just, you know, boom. Or they can use it as a punisher if they want to. Can you whiff punish false QCP4 with an electric? Yes, you can. So QCP4 is one of the moves that are used as a keep out. I think I mentioned QCP4 only once as a tracking tool, but I forgot to use it, mention it as a keep out tool. I did talk about rage, but I think there are like 2 more things I have to talk about which I just remembered. So one is the QCP4 we just mentioned. This is a keep out tool that is basically stay away from me. If you come in and press a button, you're gonna get countered into a melee damage, right? Basically what it is. But if it whiffs, the recovery of it is good, but if you're ready, you can definitely punish it, especially if your spacing is correct. Right? Just have to be fast enough. But be careful of its whiff recovery. It's a very very fast whiff recovery. So because of that, pressing after this solves all the things. So this is the DAF42. Very very common. And they do that because it recovers so quickly. It just works. Toadslot, hello. Although you can punish it with electrics, if you do like a back 4 or forward 3 or forward 4-2, it can be a little bit more consistent, but you know, you're not getting a launch. The second thing I want to talk about is his ultimate tackle, which I don't remember how to do, so let's do the movement list. Move list. This move right here. This is one of the most important things to break against the Paul player. You see the damage? Let's remove rage rate. Let's see the damage without the rage. 61 damage. From ultimate tackles. Of course you can break this with 1+2, the initial throw. I'm messing it up. There we go. I have to time it more. I have to like get used to timing instead of mashing it. Of course 1+2 is the initial break, but if you don't break this, let's assume you don't break this. You have to make sure this does not hit you. And this is a 1 break. Mash 1. All the time. There's no reason not to mash 1. Unless they literally know you're mashing 1. And you're playing the mind game, which is a mind game situation there, right? Because Paul can do a 2, or he can also do a 1+2. But since the 1 option is the highest damage, you almost always start with mashing 1. Do not want to get hit by a 61 damage throw. Definitely not. So yeah, that's ultimate punishment, I think that's what it's called, right? Ultimate punishment, yeah. So yeah, I think that's more or less the important stuff about Paul, more or less. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more. I mean, Paul has a lot of mind games, a lot of character has a lot of mind games in general. But it is a speed lab for a reason, we're not going to talk about literally everything. I think even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to. But yeah, YouTube, big thank you for watching. Big thank you. And I'll see you guys next time.